Hi, and welcome back to Grief Inspired. My name is Catherine McNulty, and if you haven't been here before, well, we look at grief differently around here, and I am so excited to have Godsey with me today. So, as many of you know, if you have been following me, part of what Grief Inspired does is it redefines how we grieve in the world. And how do we do that? Well, we start out by leading with hope and saying that there is hope after loss, making sure that people do not grieve alone. That's why we do these videos. That's why we get in community. And then education is a big part of it, and getting support through education and learning about your grief and what this all means to you. And it really is going to bring you back to joy. So we here at Grief Inspired, we focus on what I like to call the gifts of grief rather than the despair of loss. So it's a fundamental shift. And I don't think that there's anyone who embodies that more than Godsey. And Greg, I know you may or may not define yourself as being grief inspired, but in my eyes, you are, because you've been through it, you've come out the other side, and you have a very positive take on life that I think is very refreshing. So I wanted to bring you on here today so that you could talk to us a little bit about your story, share your story of loss, and then the things that have happened after your loss, how you've moved forward and continued on in a way that is very positive. So can we start out with, so first of all, thank you. Welcome for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And remind me where you are in the world.
Fresno,
California.
so right in the San Joaquin Valley,
So
right smack dab in the middle of the state.
Perfect, perfect.
But yeah, it's all right.
So let's start by you telling us, share some of your story for the listeners who haven't heard it before.
All right. Renee and I were married almost 29 years at the time of her death. We were together 30 years, but married 29 of those years. And she had problems with asthma, as her sister did. And her sister had passed away from a really bad asthma attack. And so when when Renee started having problems with her asthma, I really kind of tuned into that. I was an EMT, drove an ambulance and did all that kind of good stuff, and was a volunteer firefighter for a few years. And so I was in tune with what needed to be done. But she was at home one day, and I had been home, and she reached up and grabbed my hand and says, "Greggy, I can't breathe." And I said, "You know what, we're just going to call an ambulance. We're going to get you the help you need." And while I was on the phone with 911, she passed. I saw it. And so I lifted her out of her chair, put her on the floor, and began CPR. So we did that for about 10, it seemed like an eternity, but in likelihood, it's probably 10, 15 minutes before the fire department, everybody could get to where we were. And so it just, from there, I mean, you help people, you save people, but when it's your own, it's a whole different perspective. And I was amazed at how my body and knew what to do and to do the CPR and what positions, because it had been a while. So I was very blessed to have that immediate recall on what needed to happen and to give her. It gave her 2 extra days, and she passed away. But I kind of figured that was going to happen, but I was hoping against, everything. But when she died, it was, it's like getting hit by what I would think by a Mack truck,
Well, yeah. And so first of all, that's incredible that you were there and equipped to be able to help her immediately, right? All of those years of EMT training. And like you said, it's interesting that you just go into, it's just habitual and you just go on and do it.
Yeah, just
And,
flipped and went right into it.
and do you think, well, to me, I mean, it sounds like, and tell me if you agree with this, I mean, it sounds like you got those couple of extra days because of your
Well,
ability to be
definitely.
able to do that.
Yeah, it took me a long time to see that, but yeah,
Yeah.
it gave people time to get where we were in Orange County, for people who wanted to come say goodbye, and we said, okay, this is, and the one thing that Renee and I had always agreed on is if we had to be on life support, we didn't, if there was no chance,
Mhm.
be done with it, and so I honored that request. It was the most difficult paper I ever had to sign, but I honored that request.
Okay.
And, but yeah, it gave her, 2 extra days
Was
to,
she at all alert or no? During those 2 days? No. Okay. Okay.
she,
But
in my heart, she died at home. I mean, she died at home.
okay. Okay. Well, but there's also this line of thought, and I don't know if you agree with this, but being able to speak to people when they're in
Yeah.
that state, whether or not they can hear, right? I'd like
Yeah.
to believe that they can, and that anything that you said or anything that anyone else said to her, that somehow she was
Yeah.
able to take in.
And the one thing that has comforted me with this is that she reached for me and help, knowing that I would be the one to do it. And so I as hard as it is to remember it, it's also oddly satisfying to know that she knew that I was the one there, that the man who loved her the most
Mhm.
was going to do his best to make sure she got all the help she needed.
Right.
And I don't know if that makes sense, but to
Well, for
me, and
me,
it just kind of helped me.
it makes complete sense, right? So, I mean, as I have experience with removing life support, and I think that that's
Yeah,
something that unless you're in that situation, you can't really have an
yeah,
appreciation. But knowing, right, knowing that you knew that that's what she wanted, and you were kind of, fulfilling her wishes as hard as it is.
yeah. It wasn't. She made that decision. I just carried it out for her, and she would have made the same decision for me and carried it out on my behalf. So I was. That was one of my last great honors in honoring her wishes,
Right.
if I said that right. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
and the thing that just blows me away. I mean, sometimes I joke to bring levity, but I've
yeah,
only I didn't even make it to 10 years being married, right? When it comes to marriage, but I talk all of the time to people who have been married 20, 30, 40 years and then lose a spouse. And it's so devastating because you don't know a life without that person. And I think that trying to find a way to move forward after that
yeah.
is
Uh,
really
it
challenging.
it was hard. I got to a really deep depression. I don't even remember the first year.
Okay.
I honestly, I don't have I have little spot memories here and there. But I have and I had to apologize to my kids. And I told them, I said, look, guys, I don't know what happened the first year after mama died. So if I did something stupid or if I was whatever, please know that uh, my brain was not where it needed to be and I was not functioning normally.
Right.
It was really hard. But I really got to a point where I had to think of what would Renee want for me to do, number one, and number two, what do I want for myself?
Mm.
Because I'm the one here. you know I've got a son, who just got married, and to a beautiful young lady, and I've got my daughter who lives with me, and I had to make a decision for myself. Am I going to be, am I going to die with Renee, or am I going to um, survive? And I had to make that choice. And I got to that point where, and when I say deep dark, I mean about as deep as you can go, and was really contemplating, stupid things. And thankfully, I have family around me and friends. I've got friends in Australia that when it was 3 o'clock in the morning here, it's, like whatever, 10 o'clock in the morning there. So, we would talk back and forth. And so I always 24/7 had somebody around that I
That's
could talk to.
amazing.
And I was
That is a
so
tip.
glad.
That is a tip to point out, people, right? Is have
Yeah,
friends globally so that
yeah,
they're in
have friends
different time
globally. Yeah,
zones.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that no matter where you are in the time of day, you have somebody, you know.
Well,
But
but I love that. I love that concept of you making the choice, because I think that is inherently something that, and everyone says, you have to hit rock bottom before you make a choice, whatever that is. But I don't know if you necessarily have to do that, but I think there is a point in time where there's a choice to be made. Are you going to stay? I know that was for me. I had a similar choice. Am I going to stay being how I was, miserable, sad, depressed, unavailable to the people around me?
yeah, yeah.
Or did I want something different? So you mentioned it as if, like, do you feel like it was a moment in time, or was it a progression that you led up to? Like, what are your thoughts?
Before I came out of it.
Well,
Uh,
when you made the like, was the choice in an instant, like something happened? And for me, it wasn't instant. I was asking if, is that your same experience?
Pretty much, I think. I got like I said, so deep, and I finally figured out, what am I doing?
Hmm.
I can't do this. I don't have time for this. I've got 2 kids who need me, and I need to be strong for them. I don't have time to do this, and this is not what Renee would have wanted. And so I had to make that choice to do that. But it was kind of like I had to kick myself in the butt to get me to go and say, no, I can't do this. And I called my mom. And if anybody who has ever met my family, I told you I come from a family of ministers,
Mhm.
and my mom knows how to pray. And boy, she would talk to me, and she would, just encourage me, and my brothers, and my, my cousins, and my friends in Australia. All these people would just, come on, Greg, you can do this. Yeah, keep it together, keep it together. People from our church, it was just, the support was amazing. But I had the choice to get through that was mine.
Right.
No, all of that would have been is fine, but if I didn't make the choice, I could still be where I was. Thankfully, I've learned that I think I wrote one time in one of your columns about life being a chapter book.
Yes.
You have all these chapters, all these different things. And when you go to the next chapter, you don't forget what happened in the last chapter. The last chapter is just as important, because it's what brings you to where you are now. You have new players in the game, you have a new storyline, you have whatever, but you always refer back to the previous chapters. And so just because that chapter is gone doesn't mean they're done,
Right.
and I had to move forward. And I tell people who I've spoken with about loss that moving on and moving forward to me are 2 different things. You move on from a car accident,
Yes.
you move on from spilling the milk, you move on, build a bridge type thing, but this is my own strict opinion. But for me, moving forward was not taking away, not removing, not forgetting, just taking the next step so that my new normal could start.
Yes.
And that's what I had to do.
So
I think that I did that because I've met wonderful people, and it's just my life has really grown, and you know, it's great. I love it.
well, right. And you know, and I love the whole concept, right? Because it's not moving on, it's moving forward. And I have so many of my viewers saying, okay, you know, you've gotten to the point where you've made the decision, right? Where you want something different. And and sounds like you were surrounded, like what I was thinking when you were talking about all the people around you is that you were surrounded by hope. You were surrounded by other people knowing that you could get through this somehow, or encouraging you to get through it, but that the choice is yours. And then you got to start to move forward. So for you, how did you start to move forward? Everybody always wants to know, how long does it take? Right? These are the questions.
I will say this. In January 27th, it'll be 5 years since Renee passed. And some people, don't ever want to have a relationship after that. Totally get that. Totally respect that. I like having somebody that in my life that I can hold on to and talk to and confide in, and I can do all those things to a certain degree with mom and saying, hey mom, I need to talk to you, but mom's not here and mom's not somebody I can hold and say, hey, help me, and I found my kids started saying, Dad, you just need to start dating again.
Well, you're a young guy,
That
right?
was a whole new thing. Let me tell you something. Dating 30 years ago was one thing. Dating today, completely different. Like, here, Dad, here's a computer. Go meet women. Wait a minute. On a computer? What are you talking about? I am not going to date a computer. I'm sorry. But no, but through that, I met Randy, and Randy has been just a wonderful source of encouragement, and has been there. And she has a beautiful daughter and her girlfriend, and of course my kids, and everybody just kind of came together, and it was like you have a family again.
Right.
And it's not that I didn't have it before, but it's a new dimension. It's hard to explain. It's just a new dimension.
What's a new chapter, right? You created a new chapter.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and I love that, and I love that your kids encouraged you as well. Because I'm sure that had to be hard. I mean, I myself am divorced and looking at like the dating scene and going, no.
Yeah.
But no,
my daughter wanted me out of the house. I think my daughter wanted me out of the house. Dad, go, please, just go.
Right. But now you're writing this new chapter, and it includes Randy, and and you also said, these new chapters include everything in the past, right? So talk a little bit about, how things are with Randy and how that relates to, your relationship that's still in some ways ongoing with Renee, right? Because that relationship doesn't necessarily ever end, in my opinion. Like, the love is always going to be there.
Yeah, there's always going to be a part of me that is going to love and miss Renee, always. Okay. But that doesn't deter from my love for Randy. Randy, trying to think of how I could put this in words. It's just, I'm drawing a blank for just a minute here. I'm sorry.
It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's Randy. We had to talk about, the fact that the man I am today, that she knows now, the man that she loves now, is in great part due to what Renee taught me.
Right.
And so I told her, I said, I've had two very strong women in my life, my mother and my wife. You know, one taught me how to treat a woman and the other one taught me how to love a woman.
Right.
And it's two different lessons. And mom taught me how to treat one and Renee taught me how to love one. And they're two, like I said, two different lessons. But all of that makes who I am today, who she loves. So she can appreciate, you know, she never knew Renee, obviously, but
Right.
she can appreciate what I had and because of who it's made me now.
Right.
And so moving forward, you know, it's her and I together based on, again, it's those past chapters. You're pulling from those things, the lessons you've learned, you know, how to handle a circumstance, whatever it is, you're learning from those and you're pulling from those into your current situation so that you can again move forward.
Well, right. And you mentioned when we were talking earlier that like there are times when things can come up. Like, of course they do.
Oh, yeah. You know, my anniversary, you know, Renee and I were married June 25th, 1988. That day will always be a day in my mind that I'll take and I've allowed myself, this is how I do it. I give myself a few minutes and go, okay, you know, I know what today is. I know the significance of it. I know the loss of it, but I also know all the great gains from it.
Mm.
And those are, I was talking to my brother, we were talking about things to balance. And when you have a bad memory, you replace it with a good memory of that person. And eventually your bad memories will fade and your good memories, you have more good than bad, you know, of the loss. And I don't know.
That's so important though. Like what you just said, the statement there is so important. So I want everybody to capture this, right? Is because sometimes we get so stuck on the events that happened, right? Surrounding the loss and the period of time. And whether it's a year or however long you're grieving after, you know, and you're still grieving, but the intensity of the grief.
Yeah.
But when you compare that to the amount of time or the things that you had, like in your case, you had 30 years worth of good memories to draw on versus, you know, the one day followed by the 2 days and then
Right.
happened after
Right.
that. And so I love what you say about, you know, and it really is, it's shifting your focus on what do you want to remember. Like choose to remember what you want to remember, and you can remember the bad or you can choose to remember the good.
You know, I've always been one of those happy-go-lucky kind of guys. And so I've always been the joking, you know, make light of whatever. And I just wasn't that person for that first few years. I was like, yeah, I wasn't that person. I had to get back to who I was. I lost myself and I had to find myself. And now that I have, you know, I can laugh and joke and we can talk about stories and whatever and things. And it doesn't, every once in a while, something will trigger and I'll have to excuse myself,
Yeah.
you know, or if I see something on TV about, you know, a husband losing his life, I'll conveniently disappear, you
Right.
know, it just depends on the circumstance. But yeah, I've gotten to a point now though, through, like I said, through families and friends and Randy and Cal, McKenna, Garrett, I'm just naming people because all my family that just kind of gather around and support us to propel me forward so that I don't have to look back. I can move forward again, bringing all the chapters with me, but I get to move forward.
Oh, see, that's so good. And you are such an inspiration and you continue to be, right? Because there's more chapters coming. There's more chapters coming for you.
God only knows what's going to happen next because I sure don't.
I don't think any of us do, right? And
Yeah,
none of us expect sometimes what does happen. So,
yeah.
So before we go, let me ask you this, right? There are lots of people who are watching these videos who are looking for hope because they're in that dark place and because they, you know, maybe they're making the choice, or maybe they're thinking about making a choice to have something different, but they know they don't want to stay where they are. What advice would you leave them with, you know, as we sort of close out here?
For me, I was blessed to have loved and been loved by a tremendous person, Renee. And she really was my rock, you know. And for me to let go of that rock, you know, we talk about whitewater rapids, you know, you're holding on to that rock, you're holding on for dear life because you know you're stable. But when you let go because you got to find a new rock, that's hard to do. And that takes a lot of faith, and it takes a lot of patience and a lot of, you know, soul searching. Are you ready for that? If you are, then take a baby step. If you're not, then hold back until you are. For me, I felt like I was at the point where I could at least try. And because I opened that door of possibility, my life has changed. And it's not, you know, it's just been a huge blessing for me. So I know for me, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I had it in me. I had to really question whether or not I could or not. But once I figured out, okay, look, we can do this, you know, baby steps, one foot in front of the other, and then we move forward. And then we move forward and you see where it takes you. If it's taking you back to who you were and that happy place, then keep following that path. And that to me, I think people give up so easy these days. They turn away because it gets hard. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but you can do it if you put your effort in and you're looking at the right things and you're doing the right things, it'll work out.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. Like I have goosebumps. I have goosebumps. It's so good. It's so good. And so that's why, you know, I mean, and I continue to make these videos, and I try to, as much as I can, provide tools and things to help people see that vision and figure out how to take those baby steps. But I think you're right. I think that, you know, one step at a time, we can get there.
And everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey is different, you know. They have to look at their situation and what, you know, who they've got around them and what they can do, and then make those steps. But again, keeping positive and remembering the good things. Yeah, we can always remember the loss. You know, we can always remember the loss. I used to sing in a choir, and our choir director said one time, you can sing the whole cantata and everything be fine, but you missed the last note on the last song, and that's what people are going to remember.
Yes.
So, you know, that's what people are going to remember. Hey, they did great right up there. You know.
Yes. Yes.
If we do that with our lives, we're the ones to blame. For me, I didn't want to look at that last note. I wanted, yes, it happened. Yes, we'll move from there, however that is. But to me, you had to move forward. I had to move forward, and you just can, but you got to be positive about it.
Right, right. So no, I love this. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being an inspiration. I think this is wonderful. And everyone, if you have questions for Greg, feel free to drop them below and he will be able to respond to you directly. If you have questions for me, but as always, there is hope. Do not grieve alone. Ask for support and you can do this thing. Bye for now.
Absolutely.